Greetings loyal subscribers and honoured guests. So far for Cyberpunk September I have reviewed 9 games, and today I want to highlight another 7 titles in the genre that may be worth your time. In 1997, Westwood Studios were at the height of their powers, having given us the Legend of Kyrandia trilogy, the Lands of Lore series, and of course the Command & Conquer franchise. Off the back of their success with these games, they managed to secure the Blade Runner license, and they delivered fans their dream game. Let's not forget that at the time, fans of the original movie had been starved of follow-ups or spin-offs ever since the film came out in 1982, so getting anything new was like a dream. The plot of the game had very little to do with the movie itself. Instead, the events played out in parallel and saw rookie runner Ray McCoy tracking down another rogue group of Nexus 6 androids. One of the cool things about the game was that each time you started over, it would randomly shuffle who of certain characters could potentially be an android or a human. In terms of atmosphere, Westwood really nailed it, making use of familiar locations and the amazing Vangelis soundtrack from the original movie. The game was stuck in purgatory for years until Good Old Games finally did the work required to bring it to modern PCs, which then paved the way for a new enhanced edition on all the major consoles. The game is definitely showing its age a bit visually now, but it's still definitely worth a look if you're a fan of the series and it has passed you by. Starbreeze's Syndicate from 2012 for the Xbox 360, PS3 and PC is a reboot of the classic series by Bullfrog Productions. It takes the basic concepts of corporate espionage and wars between big businesses and transplants it from a top-down strategy game to a first-person shooter. Some of the famous gadgets, such as the Persuadertron, which takes over the minds of whoever is targeted, have made it over to this game, and overall it was very well received. The single-player campaign featured the voice talents of some big names like Rosario Dawson and Brian Cox, and it was backed up by a multiplayer mode that was very well liked by those who played it. Sadly though, the servers were just recently shut down a few months ago, which does reduce the appeal of the game a bit. Not that there were a ton of people still playing online, but there was a small dedicated contingent remaining. However, a physical copy of the game will set you back just £2.50 in CEX, and it is backwards compatible with the Xbox One and Series consoles, so I would say it's still worth checking out. Another series that's no stranger to reboots is Shadowrun. The original tabletop campaign features a mix of cyberpunk, fantasy, horror and detective fiction, incorporating magic, corporate warfare and deadly artificial intelligences called intrusion countermeasures. It was brought over to both the SNES and the Mega Drive in the 90s in 2 quite different RPGs, and gamers still debate which one of the 2 is better to this very day. Then in 2007, Faster Studios released their adaptation of the campaign for the Xbox 360, this time as an online-only competitive first-person shooter. Servers for this version were shut down quite some time ago, and so the game has been unplayable for years, until Microsoft inexplicably decided to fix them alongside various Call of Duty servers this year. But that's not the game I want to talk about today. Instead, that is Shadowrun Returns and its follow-ups Dragonfall and Hong Kong. With these games, harebrained schemes successfully adapted the source material into turn-based strategy games, which play similarly to the modern incarnation of XCOM. Returns originally came out on PC in 2013 and has been recently re-released on modern platforms earlier this year. It is part of Game Pass at the moment, so if you have that then I strongly urge you to give it a try. Next we come to the Ascent, which is a twin-stick shooter that came out in 2021. I did give it a go on Game Pass initially, but bounced off it after about 15 hours spent on it. At the time there were quite a few annoying glitches, and the game also grew a bit samey after a while. It didn't turn out to be the Cyberpunk Diablo that I hoped it would be, as the range of different loot is quite limited. I've picked it up again this year though, this time on my Steam Deck, where I think it is a much better fit, as I can play it at the same time as watching a stream, listening to a podcast or commuting home from work. It is still not really interesting enough for me to spend all my undivided attention on it, but as a time filler while doing something else, it is perfect. It also looks great on the deck at medium settings. Now we come to Dex, which I had originally lined up for a full review, but then I didn't get into it nearly as much as I had liked, and ended up swapping it out for Beyond a Steel Sky, which I enjoyed a good deal more. This is a side-scrolling RPG with real-time action combat and surprising depth. There are a ton of abilities and stats that you can upgrade as you level up your character. You can choose to fight barehanded, with melee weapons, or with firearms if you find some and can afford ammunition, and you can also hack most of the electronic devices that you come across. I ended up with a ton of side quests in my journal, and according to how long to beat, you were looking at a completion time between 11 and 17 hours. There is an RRP of $17.99 on the Nintendo eShop, but the game frequently goes on sale for up to 90% off, or £1.79 in other words. I would definitely suggest you pick it up and try it for yourself at that price. I got a bit frustrated with it myself because the navigation proved a bit tricky at times, and I couldn't find certain places I was looking for to finish certain quests. If I wasn't trying to rush through it so I could get a review done in time for this series, then I may have fared better with it. Another game that can be picked up for a ridiculously cheap price if you can catch it during a sale is State of Mind. I remember watching Vinny from Giant Bomb play a sizable chunk of this game for a quick look years ago and being quite intrigued by it. So when Switch Up highlighted it during one of their sale videos, I jumped on it and ended up having a really enjoyable time with it. You spend most of your time playing as a journalist called Richard Nolan, voiced by Doug Cockle aka Geralt of Rivia, as he wakes up after an explosion to find his family has gone missing. This is a very interesting adventure game with a compelling central mystery. My only small gripe with it is that it doesn't always perform well or look great on the Switch hardware, so I would suggest maybe playing it on Steam instead. It's another one that is often available for just £1 or $2 though, and is well worth it at that price. The last game that I'm going to highlight today is a stone cold classic that goes by the name of Snatcher. This is the Sega CD version written and developed by Hideo Kojima, and like I said in my 2064 Read-Only Memories review, it has one of the most amazing introductory sequences that I have ever seen in a game, especially the music. This game puts you in the shoes of Gillian Seed, who is a junker in the city of Neo-Kobe. Their task is to identify and hunt down Snatchers, killer robots who try and blend into society by disguising themselves as regular human beings. Kojima is a huge movie buff, and Snatcher quite obviously mashes up elements from several popular science fiction flicks from the 80s such as Blade Runner and The Terminator. Most of the game is played in the form of an adventure, but there are also action sequences spread throughout, which can actually be played using the light gun from the Mega Drive or Genesis, if you are playing on original hardware and are lucky enough to own one. If you have never experienced this game and you are a fan of the films mentioned here or other games made by Kojima, then you absolutely owe it to yourself to go back and play this. It can be quite easily emulated these days, which is by far the easiest method of enjoying it. Getting hold of a genuine physical copy for the Sega CD could set you back almost £1,000 these days. Before I wrap things up today, I have a few honourable mentions, namely Gamedec Definitive Edition, Ruiner and Ghostrunner. All of these are well worth looking into, but sadly I don't have the time to cover all of them thoroughly. Maybe if I do this again next year we can explore all these and more. There certainly are plenty of cyberpunk video games out there, a lot more than I originally thought there were when I started planning this series. All that remains is my first impressions video for Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, which I have scheduled for the last day of the month in an attempt to give me as much time as possible to play it. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider leaving a like, dropping a comment or sharing on social media. See you in the Matrix, and in the meantime, take care.